once we got ashore, it was like everything was frozen in time. There was no weather at all. There was no wind, and it was just absolutely silent.
Welcome to our inaugural episode. We are Monsters Lounge. I'm Tressa. Here's Jenny. Jenny, give us an intro.
Oh boy, Tressa.
Yeah,
you kind of just wrapped it all up there. It's
all
our
right.
very
Thanks
first.
for joining us.
Yeah. Okay. Good night. It's our very first episode. I'm thrilled. We are Monsters Lounge, and we will be talking about all sorts of things, not just tonight, but most nights.
that we do
the show on Tuesdays. Yes. Very excited to be here. And you know what? I'm very excited about our guest tonight, Tressa.
Me too. Fun guy
And smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's written stuff.
Like what?
Oh, like this book, Messages from Mothman.
What's that?
Well, it's a fantastic read. So pick it up wherever you can find the books, Amazon specifically. But anyway, our guest and our atmosphere tonight are amazing. It's very cold in the Midwest right now, a lot of snow. So we thought immediately Alaska. And what else do you think about in Alaska other than Bigfoot?
Canning.
Oh, yeah. Canning.
Lumber.
I always think about canning when I think about Alaska.
I think about canning a lot, so that's part of it.
Do you really? I didn't realize
No,
that.
I don't. No.
Oh, okay.
I'm lying.
Well, this guy has a battery-operated can opener, so that's my reference to canning right now. And without further ado, let's bring on our guest. His name is Greg Lawson.
Greg.
Yay!
I have never had a better intro than that. That was absolutely incredible.
You're so welcome. I wrote it for her.
Yeah, I just couldn't come up with the words to appropriately talk about Alaska.
Well, you did. It was very unique and poignant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And timely.
You know, I really aim to pull at the heartstrings with my introductions, just my words in general.
You pull it off.
Battery operated can opener. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. So specifically, you're all kinds of investigative. You do paranormal investigations. You do all sorts of stuff.
Yes.
And you've been to Alaska looking for Bigfoot.
I have. Yeah. So people always ask me, oh, so you're a ghost hunter. I'm like, yeah, not a ghost hunter. No. Oh, you do cryptids. So I have 32 years in law enforcement. So in that, I've done most everything except for like traffic stuff. I did the SWAT, homicide instructor, and I'm currently a director of training for a pretty large academy in Texas. And my expertise is as I'm a former expert witness. I'm a professor. I teach criminal law at a local college, and that's what I specialize in. So in my training and experience, I'm considered a professional researcher and investigator. So it doesn't matter whether I'm investigating a homicide or insurance fraud. It's kind of all the same thing. If you're using industry standards and best practices, it's kind of all the same thing. You kind of stay in those lines, but pay attention to the red flags that pop up, as we will probably talk one day about. That's where I got
cryptic.
Yeah.
Very cryptic. So talking about how to get away with murder, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, do I not say that to someone in police?
Oh no, that's quite
cool.
All right. I know where a lot of
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, moving on. So when did you go to Alaska? How did that come about that you went to go look for Bigfoot? And where were you? All of the details, please.
Long story short.
No, make it long.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, it was 1982, and I just
you just got out of second grade.
Thanks. I got my high school diploma and the the world crashed like it did in 2008, right?
Mhm.
Everything, all the car dealerships and everything went down, all the manufacturers and everything. And back then they didn't bail you out. You either ran your business properly or you didn't. And so when that happened, jobs went away. And there wasn't anything for me because I basically had no skill. I was going to be a artist, and my father had a bunch of businesses, and my plan was he was going to give me a job and give me a lot of money so I could paint and do sculpture. Right? That was the big plan. That was
That's
the
a
big
great
plan.
I
plan.
love this plan. Can I sign up for this plan?
Oh yeah, it didn't
Me
work
too.
though. It
Oh.
doesn't necessarily work because when the economy crashes and your father files bankruptcy and loses all of his businesses except for here's a teaching moment,
Uh-huh.
the liquor store.
Oh, yeah.
If you're going to get into a business that will survive everything, liquor store. Anyway, so I'll go to a part-time job employment service and see what I can get there. And I went in there and I filled out their application and I got called in to this old man who's in this little tweed jacket. And I came in there and he's looking at my application. He goes, you don't have any training? You don't have any experience? I don't have anything for you. You need to go to college. I said, well, my father made too much money and he filed bankruptcy and now I can't get any loans or grants or anything like that. And he goes, well, son, you need to go in the military. I was like, hell no, I'm not going in the military. 3 weeks later, I'm on the bus going in the military. And I
boy.
went in
how
the army. Yeah. So I went from long-haired artist to shaved head infantryman. And so when I graduated out of our AIT, the advanced infantry training, I'd gone to airborne school and I was assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division, and they came out and called everybody's names out and told them where they were going. And I had signed my dream sheet, Panama, Hawaii, and Italy.
That makes sense. Those are some good
being
dream
from
spots.
Texas, I was like, yeah, I want to stay warm. I want to go do some stuff. And they're like,
And where'd
well,
you end up?
Alaska.
Oh,
That's not the same as any of
What?
those places.
no.
Yeah. It ripped the heart out of me. I was like, are you kidding me? I want to go to the 82nd. I want to go, get deployed and do stuff and do this and do that. And they sent me to Alaska, and it was the best thing ever.
You had a great time, or was the best thing for what you needed at that point? Because those are
So
two different things.
I can say this. I know myself well enough now that I can say wherever I go, it's going to be the best time.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
what?
I know that's arrogance. I don't know.
I just didn't expect you to say that is
I
all.
enjoy.
I like it.
I
I
enjoy what
love
I'm
it.
doing.
That's
And
fantastic.
but it was such a different experience going from Texas summers to Alaskan winters.
How so?
Um, just the whole geography, the culture. It was just it was amazing. I had such a good time. So when I was up there, I was reassigned. I went to what's called Black Rapids. It's a Northern Warfare Training Center at Fort Greely, up near Fairbanks, and they asked for cold weather indoctrination CWI instructors, and I had just gone through the course, and I volunteered. I was like, hell yeah. Stay above the subarctic circle and ski all day long and hike and it's just amazing. So I was an instructor up there for the winter. I got to do some really great things. I wrote a book a few years ago with Rosemary
You
Ellen.
write books?
Yeah, I have one that's called Mothman. I don't know if you've seen it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But I did one with Rosemary Ellen Guiley. She had come over and hey, look at that. She had come over to my table at one of the events, and she had a Detecting Paranormal book that I'd written. She goes, hey, Greg, would you sign this? And I'm like, what is Rosemary Ellen Guiley doing asking me to sign a book? She's the Pope-S of the paranormal, and
Nice.
I was like, where'd you get that? She goes, well, I ordered it on the internet. And I said, I would have given you one. She goes, never give away your books, ever.
Okay, good luck. then.
So yeah. And she goes, are you signed anywhere? I'd like to do a book with you. I'm like, what? And so we ended up doing How to Be a Paranormal Detective book. And that was a great experience to have Rosemary Ellen Guiley as my guide and mentor and cross-examining me on everything I said. It was great. After that, she said, you need to write a book about your experiences. It's like, nobody wants to hear about that. And she goes, no, write me a couple of stories, send them to me. So I did. And she goes, yeah, we're going to do a book. So we did Diaries of a Paranormalist, Encounters with Death. And a couple of the stories in it were Alaska stories. And I could have written more because my most serious, emotional, in-depth experience in the paranormal came in Alaska.
Really?
It was more of a metaphysical experience, but to this day, I get kind of a little weird about it when I tell the story.
Let's get weird. Tell us about this story, bro.
We're talking about Bigfoot. What do we?
I know, but you brought it up.
You did bring it up.
Yeah, but it's just kind of a teaser, all right. So I was when I was up there in the summertime, I get chosen for the CWI instructor, but then in the summertime, they started a program with the Department of the Interior of Alaska with a fire department up there. They wanted to start a swiftwater rescue, a pararescue team, because Alaska's so big, the Coast Guard can't take care of all of the coast. And they certainly can't take care of the rivers inside and the large lakes inside and all that stuff. So they wanted to train their firemen and their volunteer firemen as swiftwater rescue and pararescue. So they brought in 12 of us from the Army, 4 from the Coast Guard, and 4 from the Air Force. Mm-hmm. So we did all of our helicopter operations. They sent us to Kodiak, and we spent 3 weeks with the Coast Guard in Kodiak swimming the whole time. Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah. The water is very cold. Mm-hmm. After we got through doing that, we were there for 3 weeks, and on my time off, I would go over and do different things. But they had a little Russian historical society there because the Russians obviously used to own Alaska, and there was a lot of Russian influence. And so I went to the historical society over there. Back then, today you can look stuff up on Google and just have it right in your hand. But back then you had to go to places like historical societies or libraries. They had these things called books.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, you actually had to look up in the encyclopedia.
Yeah, Tressa, you had to read things like articles, and
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah. So I did that, and I found this thing. There was a massacre that happened up there close to Kodiak. The Russians ended up killing a whole bunch of the indigenous population there. And it was at a place called Refuge Rock. And I kept thinking about it. I dreamed about it. Anyway, so my last day there at doing the pararescue stuff, we got cut loose, and I went over to get an Alaska Uber. Back then, an Alaska Uber in the 1980s was the least drunk guy at the airport that would fly you in a little airplane someplace else, right? It was, it's commercial airlines. Whatever, get in here, give me $40, and they take it. So
I just assumed it was a dog sled. So
I had him fly me to a place called Old Harbor, and it was really weird because I landed at the airport there, and I got out and had all my stuff, and he goes, "Yeah, town is that way. Just take off walking down that road, and you didn't see anything. It's just a road off into the woods, right?"
Right.
And so I'm walking, probably 1.5 miles, 2 miles, something like that. And I come around this little bend, and there is a Russian Orthodox church in the woods.
Oh, that's got to be gorgeous.
1700s, I guess. Yeah, I mean, it's old.
Wow.
And it's just all overrun and everything. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So go ahead and look at that. And then I went on a little further, found downtown Old Harbor, and stayed at the Bates Motel in Old Harbor. And they apparently have a franchise in Old Harbor.
It's disturbing on some levels.
Yeah. And I went down and I talked to, there's a whole bunch of fishermen down there, and they run, fishing tours and stuff out of there. So I talked to them, and I got one of them to give me a ride. He was taking his tour out, give me a ride to this island off of there called Sitkaladak Island. And so he dropped me off there, and then I had to hike about 5 miles over Sitkaladak to this little spit where Refuge Rock is. Now there was 2,000 men, women, and children that were slaughtered on this rock, and they were killed by 2 Russian fur trading ships that had cannon. So when they tried to round them up, because believe it or not, back in the 1700s, everybody owned slaves. I don't know if y'all know
What?
that or not, but oh yeah.
This is
What?
news. Maybe it
So the-
was information in a book.
yeah,
I
it's in a
don't
book.
know what you
Okay.
guys are talking
In a
about.
book.
Mm.
So
Wait, 2,000 people. Was that like the entire village or community?
there's a
2,000
large part of the
people is
community that
insane.
so there's
Yeah.
an argument of whether it was 200 or 2,000, but
Neither are great.
yeah, I would say it would probably be more around 2000. So what they did is the people there, it's really interesting. You can look at Refuge Rock today from Google Earth and zoom in on it from the satellite view. If you get a chance, just type in Refuge Rock, Alaska, and zoom in on that thing, and you will see the sand spit between the two Sitkaladak Island sections. There's a spit of sand that connects them two. On the backside of that spit of sand, if you look, you will see that there is a big depression. That depression is man-made. I can guarantee you that the indigenous population dug that hole and moved that sand into the water, and they built a little underwater bridge that goes all the way to the rock, which is about 300 yards. And so when I was there, I'm sitting there watching this, and I am like 19 years old from Austin, Texas / Rockdale, Texas, and I'm standing there on this spit of sand by myself, as far from human beings as possible, kind of wondering what brought me here, what that was all about, why I'm standing there alone. That's kind of where it all culminated. Was I was supposed to be on Refuge Rock. And so I had been in the water for 3 weeks in dry suits and wetsuits, but I was like, it's not, I can do this 300 yards. I can do this. So I step off into the water and I start walking out on that. You can see that the ground is right there. I got a good, probably 75 yards to 100 yards, and the water was about up to my waist, and it wasn't real choppy, but it was kind of choppy. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I was supposed to go there. And the only way that I can describe this is if you've ever watched a movie or a TV show or something where like a demon takes over somebody and makes them stick their hand in the fire or do something really stupid to themselves.
Sure.
That's what that was.
I don't think it was a demon, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I had this was just what I was doing.
You were on autopilot.
Yeah. And I get about 100 yards out there, and I'm starting to float a little bit. The water's pretty high, and it's cold. And I started thinking about the animals in the water all around me, because there is a lot of animal life everywhere out there. Yeah. I lost my nerve, and I stopped and I turned around and I went back. I can't to this day, I can't explain the feeling that I had over that whole thing, because I completely failed at what I was supposed to do.
You never went back?
You can psychologically talk all you want to about that.
Oh, I will.
This was something more than a decision. This was something that I was supposed to do, and I failed to do it. And had I done it, how would that have changed my life?
Yeah.
I think I would have been dead.
Probably.
But, and today, because I didn't go there, I will never be able to go there, because today it's now a World Heritage Site. They made it a World Heritage Site in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Because all those bodies are still there. They bracketed cannon fire in there from those two ships, and everybody on top of that rock. And the way the rock is the village would run out there and get on top of that, and there was no way you could assault that place with both arrows and spears and rocks. You couldn't get up there. They didn't understand cannon fire, and that was so in the late 1780s or 1790s. There was a Dutch anthropologist that went through that area and actually ended up interviewing some of the people that survived that. So that's where we know the Russians, of course, didn't talk about it. And the Inuits or any of the indigenous people there didn't write any of it down. So by happenstance, this guy came through there and documented all that. So you can look that up. Wow. It's pretty crazy. So it's like the Wounded Knee of Alaska, right? I mean, it was a complete slaughter. yeah, that was kind of my real spiritual experience.
Yeah, what a profound moment. How do we
Well-
get from Oh, go ahead, Tressa.
No, I would just love to speculate on what happened there for a while, but let's move on to Bigfoot.
How do we get from that sort of spiritual experience to going back up there to investigate Bigfoot?
You know, after I get through there, I'm back, and there's multiple times and being an airborne unit, we get deployed in front of everybody else, right? So airborne units go in first, they clear out an area, and then, you know, they fly in everybody else or drive them in with vehicles or whatever. So we would get assigned surveys for areas that they were thinking that the Russians would reinvade Alaska, because you can, in the wintertime, you can come across the Bering Sea. It's solid frozen there, and they can actually come across there. And what would be the route going from that peninsula all the way down into like the Anchorage area? So they send airborne units out there. We parachute in and then do surveys with maps. And so it was meeting indigenous people out there and them talking about different creatures and different beliefs, right? So a lot of people say, well, you know, Eskimos. Well, Eskimos is like saying Indian. There's a whole bunch of different tribes. The Athabascans in Alaska are in the center part of the state. The Inuits are in the north coast. The Aleuts or Lutic people are in the Aleutian Islands, and the Tlingit people are down in the southeastern part of it. So they're all very different. However, they all share very, very similar legends and experiences. And so I would talk to different people about that. And that was always fascinating, because I always like to listen to their stories, because these stories, any stories from wherever, leprechauns, there is an origin story.
Right.
There is something that happened that either the experiencer got right or they misinterpreted it a little bit. But does that take away the importance of whatever the story is or the evidence of what happened? So up in that area, I've only been on the Yukon River twice. That was always fascinating to me, is that the Yukon River is 3,100 miles long, a little over 3,100 miles long. The United States, so was it 2,000 miles long? So it is a long river. It is super long. These stories are all over Alaska. When I was down in Seward, Alaska, I got sent down there for the Morale, Welfare, and Recreation Center. I was a good boy, and they said, we're going to reward you and send you down there for a week. It was in the summertime. It was great. Normally for Morale, Welfare, and Recreation, they'd send the soldiers on Friday and bring them back on late Sunday, right? So I was there for the whole week, and I was one of the only people that were there at the Morale, Welfare, and Recreation Center, which consisted of a Quonset hut, some folding chairs, and a cot. Right?
Oh, sounds like a party.
Today, it's like a ski lodge. It's beautiful, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm there now.
Take it over and all that stuff. It's gorgeous. Back then, it was just above eating out of a trash can. And so they have Coast Guard men that are assigned temporary assigned duty, TDY, and they drive these. There's 32-foot, 28-foot fishing boats that are they're pretty nice fishing boats, and they take the soldiers and sailors and Marines and stuff out fishing, just for a morale thing. So there's nobody else there, and I go down and I talk to these two seamen. I tell them about Portlock, and I tell them about the Bigfoot murders.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them how this town started, and how, white people came in and created a canning industry there, and all the local indigenous population came in and worked in that canning industry. And along those years, people started missing, being killed. They would find their bodies mutilated in some of the little tributaries that lead into Port Chatham and Portlock. Then I explained to them in about 1948, 1949, the entire village packed up and left because they believed a Nanticoke was killing everyone. Now, when you talk about Nanticoke, so the cryptids in Alaska, there's a whole bunch of different ones. There's really cool ones.
Oh,
yeah, there's some really cool ones that are supposed to scare kids away from the water, because they'll come out of the water and get you.
Are those the otter people?
Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah. They're really cool. But like Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Stickman, that's all white man.
Yeah.
You never heard of
Is
stick
he
man?
made out of sticks? I've never heard of
No,
stick
no,
man
no.
before.
He makes little stick for, you've seen Bigfoot, the little
Yeah,
Yeah.
things that he
yeah,
makes,
yeah.
all that
But
stuff.
that's
Yeah.
Bigfoot, not
Yeah,
stick
they
man.
call him Stick Man up there. Because
Because
he
he
makes
makes stuff with
little,
sticks.
yeah, he makes
Okay.
little stick things
All
and
right,
and
guys.
throws sticks at you also.
Yeah. Just throwing them.
Yeah,
Alright.
yeah. There's a it's called a Giluk. It's like a shaggy cannibal giant, and they typically live near the glaciers, and they come and eat you.
Oh,
And they're also they call them, a guy up near Denali Park that I was talking to. He called it Shaggy Man in a little hat. That that was the only way
Gotta
that he
have a
could.
hat.
Yeah, big shaggy man in a little hat. That was the whatever the Athabascan word was for that. I was
Yeah.
like, what is it? Okay, that's what it is. I don't remember what he told me, but I said, well, what does it mean? What does it mean? He goes, big shaggy man in little hat. I'm like, wow. I don't
Alright.
want to get eaten by that guy.
I
No.
want to know about this hat. What did it
I
look
would like
like?
to know
Yeah,
about this
I
hat.
don't know. I don't know. There's
Little top hat.
stories about that. Yeah. I don't know if the hat ever comes off. I think it's just there. The Inuit people talk about tornets or hairy men, bushmen. You got the Nanticoke in the southern part. There's a glacier demon also. Valdez Glacier has a glacier demon. That's a pretty good story because I think it's Colonel Abercrombie, one of the surveyors, one of the army surveyors that was up there, was talking to a Swedish guy that was up there that was a prospector. And Abercrombie was talking to him, and the Swedish guy told him how there was a man and his son, and they were trying to get across the glacier, and the father was at the back of the sled pushing. If you've never been on a glacier training, and the crevasses, the big cracks in the glacier, the sticky snow will land on the glacier and then build like a bridge across the crevasse, but it's soft as powder. And the crevasse is, 900 feet deep. So all of a sudden you're gone, right?
Yeah.
You just
Oh,
disappear. And so the glacier demon eats you, right? But it is grown from that. But anyway, this particular man actually said he witnessed this demon jump out, and he was smaller than what a Bigfoot would be, but very broad and stocky, and jumped on his son's back. And,
what?
Yeah, and killed his son, choked him to death and killed him.
So
And
he killed his son, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can actually go. He's buried very close to there, and you can go to his grave down there. But yeah, so there's all kinds of really cool things. But the story of multiple people being murdered by Bigfoot, by Nanticoke at Portlock, is pretty amazing.
Well, weren't the reports like something like 16 people went missing in a very short period of time, and those were just official reports?
You
Like,
know what,
those weren't
Jenny?
even...
That's a great question, and we'll get right back to it after this message. Hey, yeah, what about that? What Jenny just said.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
I
Thank
don't
you.
know
That
what
is good.
happened there. So here we go. Depends on who you talk to.
Okay.
Things that you have to consider whenever you're researching things like this is 16 people missing, official reports, right? Where are those official reports coming from?
Right.
What
How
years
official
was
are
this?
they? Mhm.
So we're looking at this being an active canning area from the early 1900s to basically 1948, 1949, depending on what article you read out of what newspaper or whose blog or, whose website.
Right.
They will say anywhere from 8 to 16 people. Some say it's a very short amount of time. Some people refer to it as, over that time period, there were 8 people or whatever. The problem with it is we will never know. The actual territorial police in Alaska was not created until 1958.
Oh, okay.
I didn't
So that
realize
was
that
10
was part
years
of that.
after the town packed up. There was no law up there at all.
Yeah. So where are these official reports
Right.
if there's no actual office producing?
There's none.
Okay.
So we don't have much of anything. We know that prospectors and hunters went missing around the cannery at different times. I want you to think about something. Most of the people that were working at the cannery there, if they were an indigenous population, they were people coming in from California, Oregon, Washington, whatever, to populate that area at that time. Remember, this is a very new state at that point. I mean, they just didn't have the infrastructure. They didn't have the people. And so you have a lot of people that don't understand this area, don't know the mountains, and can't predict the weather. So you go up there, and there's at Portlock, right across the bay. So, I was gonna say, when I talked those guys into taking me around to Portlock, right? So we made the trip, and it took us a long time. But we got on property for about 2 hours, and we looked around, and it was one of the weirdest places I've been. Once we got ashore, it was like everything was frozen in time. There was no weather at all. There was no wind.
What?
And it was just absolutely silent. There were 3 buildings up at that point. Now there's only 1. But we looked at that building. I wanted to look and find where the graveyard was. I think I found where the graveyard was. Went to where the cannery was, looked in the water, all the junk that's in the water. It's a dump, right? Well, across the bay there is a chromite mine. You can see it. The hole for the chromite mine over there. And then on top of Red Mountain is also another chromite mine. All you got to do is look up chromite and see what kind of minerals are leached out of that when you mine it and you refine it, and what kind of heavy metals could affect someone's perception on what might be happening.
What? I didn't even consider any of that.
Yeah, you look at the Erebus and the Terror, the 2 ships that got squeezed in the ice. It was in the 1700s. They just found the Terror. It's, they're all sunk and everything. But those guys had a really bad problem because those ships were stocked with lead-lined cans of food. So for 2 years, these guys were ingesting this stuff, and, on top of getting scurvy and freezing all winter long, and having to eat their dogs. And it was a horrible situation. When you're eating heavy metals like that, no telling what kind of hallucinations or brain problems cognitive problems you might start having. Right. So you have to throw that into the mix.
Sure.
You have to throw into the mix that there was no law there. So there wasn't, if somebody went missing, they're like, the guy went missing. Shouldn't have gone up there. You have in the 1940s, the late 30s, early 40s through 44, they're operating that chromite mine because they needed chrome for barrels, gun barrels, artillery barrels, and stuff like that. So they opened that mine back up. And you got to think about the guys that are mining that. Those are the guys that couldn't get in the military, because every man back then was wanting to get in the military, right?
Yeah.
They wanted to serve. And if you couldn't, well, you had to do these other jobs, and that was one of them. They got paid pretty good. Imagine going up there. You're from Oklahoma. You're up in Alaska. You're getting paid pretty good. You decide to buy a rifle and go dull sheep hunting up on the mountain. Yeah, you're going to die.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're doing. You're going to die.
Yeah. Now, the bodies that were found were mutilated pretty significantly.
Right. And once again, I am not minimizing the fact that there are people that have seen these creatures that were not eating lead-lined beef or whatever, that were mountain men that had been out there their entire life and was like, I was not attacked by a bear. I was attacked by a Bigfoot. So that is not the case in Portlock, but
what were those cases?
Higher up on the Yukon River.
Okay.
There was a guy named Albert Petka. He was a prospector and a fisherman, and he was at Nulato, Alaska, I think is where he was. And it's on the Yukon River. And he was further up in his skiff. He lived on a boat there. And he was further up the river on a skiff and was attacked. And when he made it back downstream to Nulato, and that's what he told them, was that he was attacked by a Nanticoke. He was attacked by a hairy man. And this guy would know the difference between a bear and a Bigfoot.
Right.
There are people that have seen bear in the woods, and the bear has a hurt paw, and he will stand up and he will walk around.
Sure.
And he doesn't put any weight on that front paw, and he will, like a circus bear, and he's walking around. And
We've all seen circus bears.
oh, yeah,
Yes.
circus bear with the big ball and jumping around. And so for somebody who doesn't know the woods and sees that, like, oh my God, what else does that? Only Bigfoot does that. He's hairy. It's a Bigfoot. I saw a Bigfoot. I saw Sasquatch. Yeah, that's not the case. This guy, Albert Petka, knew his environment. He grew up in that environment his entire life. Guy named John Muir. He was also attacked. He actually gave a pretty good description. He was attacked by a Bigfoot or a Tornit. And his dogs, he had a lot of dogs with him, and they ran the animal off. And that happened much further up near a town called Ruby, probably about 20 miles from Ruby.
Okay.
When I see original reports from people, like, what is this? Where's the origin report? You have to qualify your witness, right? You have to qualify this person. You have to figure out, all right, do they have good eyesight? Are they cognitive? Can they make good decisions? Are they aware of the things in those areas? What is natural and what's normal?
Sure.
And when you answer all those questions, you go, "What'd you see, dude?" And he just goes, "It wasn't a bear. It was Bigfoot." What do you do? Okay, that's what you got. And there's great stories. The Inuit people have great stories of the Tornits. The stories for them, they used to coexist. The Inuit people and the Tornits traded together. The Tornits did not have a language like that they could communicate, but they could meet and not fight and trade things. And a problem happened because a juvenile Tornit tried to steal a kayak from one of the Inuit people. And that's like stealing a man's horse in 1850 in Texas. I'm going to kill you. We're going to hang you if you try to steal a horse, because that's my livelihood. If you steal my horse, I'm dead. For a person living in that area, if you steal their kayak, they're dead. So he ended up, this Inuit person ended up killing this Tornit, this Bigfoot person. And that was the separation, they say, when the Tornits then walked into the woods and they were never seen again.
Now, of all of so we get a lot of like the murderous sort of reports and stories out of Alaska, and not as many coming from other areas. When you hear stories about Bigfoot or Sasquatch a little bit more south, they don't seem to be as angry.
Why are they so angry, Greg?
Cold weather
Is
makes
it
you angry.
because they're cold, or is it
Cold weather
because
makes you angry.
Cold
Bad
makes
things
me
happen to you
angry.
when it's cold.
Yeah.
Takes away all your virilism.
Is it the cold, or is it this sort of broken pact that they sort of had with the First Peoples?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know, because you're right. It's most interactions, most accounts that people have about, I'm just using the generic, Sasquatch is not a violent thing. Alaska has the stories of violent things happening with these creatures. But like you said, it's very, you think, okay, the Yukon River is 3,100 miles long. We have 2 incidents of men getting killed by a creature that they said was Bigfoot on the Yukon River. That's it.
So just kind of one-offs, like that's just what you hear is the violent thing, and not necessarily the stories of the trading.
Right. Yeah. You never hear any of that. And that is quite possibly a myth, right? But where did it come from? Was it, think about, obviously, I don't know if y'all know this, but I'll try to demonstrate. I have a protruding orbital ridge right here.
Boy, howdy.
Yeah.
Is that what that is? I was concerned.
So you go and you look up 23andMe, and you spit in a cup and send it to them, and they tell you what your DNA is. Right here, ladies, 3.5% Neanderthal. Oh yeah,
nice.
Right. And that's why, when Lynn comes out and sees me sitting in the garage, she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Nothing."
That's why.
What are you thinking about? Nothing. Just sitting there. It's all DNA.
Making stone tools.
That is all.
Is that what you're doing?
Great. Yeah, I got them upstairs.
All right.
So we obviously Homo sapiens and just Homo whoever, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, all of these guys interacted together. And obviously we thought some Neanderthal woman was desirable,
Or
or
vice
maybe
versa.
maybe it was vice versa. Yeah, vice versa.
Yep.
And so that happened. So why wouldn't it happen in Alaska 20,000 years ago, 40,000 years ago, assuming that there were population there?
So your theory is that there's Neanderthal hybrids in the mountains living as wild people?
So
That pretty much sums it
I-
up. Good night,
Okay,
everyone.
good night.
believe, after talking with people with PhDs who are anthropologists and
Sounds fake.
zoologists and stuff like that at Phenomicon in Vernal, Utah, and they say, by all means, there could be a population of 500 Bigfoot living in America, and we would never know it.
Yeah, I think it's 500 to 2,000. They're saying now.
So there's no reason why up in those very, very nothing up there areas that they could be hiding from the airplanes, they could be hiding from the trucks. I mean, we don't go in quiet. We're going to go in with snowmobiles or trucks or airplanes or helicopters. They're going to know we're coming. It would be very easy to hide from you. The problem is hiding your tracks. They'd have to be very smart about the way that they, transition to areas and that sort of thing. But it's all very easy.
Very adept at it. I mean, you look at indigenous peoples, there's a lot of blending into the environment and difficulty to track. And
who knows? The Hornets could have gotten with the lizard people and gone underground.
It's true. Only come out for occasional.
That's in Iceland. Shush. I don't know where that is.
Now, do you kind of think it's more of a like a flesh and blood sort of scenario? Because I know that there's some discussion back and forth about the paranormal aspect or even sort of the quantum physics aspect of Bigfoot versus this is a large primate that's just managed to elude being seen.
So I was part of a research group that were looking at doing a TV show a few years ago. I've worked fugitive warrants, and I've worked with a lot of people that hunt down people. He's not a primate, in my opinion.
So there's more of a paranormal aspect to it.
So no, he's just really smart. Now, it's very convenient. It's very, very convenient to say he's a time shift. He's a dimensional being. He's a quantum leaper.
We actually rely on theoretical matter at that point.
That's very convenient to say. That's why we can't find him.
I mean, there's other reasons people say that, but sure, go ahead.
and I like it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. I get to make fun of stuff because I do. That is a very convenient way to say we can't find him.
I mean, yes, but there's a lot of other reasons why people say that other than that we just can't find him. It's not just like he's elusive. He must be paranormal. Go ahead.
So if he's really smart, if he's human smart, well, he can avoid humans all day long. It's not not going to be
not a problem.
So if he is that smart, which let's say the Tornets that had this relationship with the indigenous population in Alaska, and they evolved in the last 40,000 years to avoid people. There you go. There it is.
I've evolved in the last something. You don't need to know years to do that. It's easy.
It's true. She's very good. I'll be looking right at her 1 minute and then she's gone.
Yep.
Yeah. Crazy.
Absolutely. Missed.
Yeah, I'm sitting here looking at myself in this thing, and it's like I still look like the cat that got hit with the slice of American cheese. I'm like, why am I like
aim your camera down a little bit?
Is that what it is? I don't know. I'm gonna figure this out.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's an angle.
I mean, you've never podcasted before, so I get it.
It's weird. This whole situation is weird, and it's cold up here too.
I know it's cold.
It's quite cold. It's quite cold and dark.
Can't find my hat.
Really dark.
So were there like some massacre with Bigfoot?
Yeah, well, the Portlock.
Talking about it.
That's the different stories in Portlock. Was it's like at the point of the whole town packing up and leaving, the cannery just leaving because of Bigfoot. And this is where a lot of the paranormal investigators go, or the cryptid investigator, the Bigfoot hunters go, is like, let's look at this this article that was written in the 1970s in the Alaska, in Anchorage Daily Times or whatever the newspaper was. And we're going to go on this as fact. And now we're going to go hunt Bigfoot instead of maybe doing a research on like the historical cannery project and find out why canneries were shut down and when and who owned them and how they moved their business and those sorts of things. So
but that's boring.
Does not always equal causation. What?
But we still have all of these stories from Indigenous people, and
absolutely.
And there's something, if you start to listen to them, there's just this sort of spirituality that comes along with it, and this partnership that I could very easily buy, especially in a place like Alaska. Just like you were talking about with your experience earlier, it's where you face so much unknown and so much information that you're just this tiny dot in a big, big world.
Completely insignificant.
Yeah.
So insignificant. It's crazy.
Okay.
So because and like I said, I have when I went to Portlock, it was a weird place. I can say, okay, it was a very weird place. The trails that were through there that were covered in bear scat was pretty phenomenal. So the bear.
What was so great about that bear scat?
Incredible, man. You had to walk around this stuff. There was a lot of it. And it's because the bear come down to those the different streams that are coming off the mountain and the areas there as far as where the fish are, the areas where the salmon are running. And that's where the bear are going to congregate. And the fact that in Portlock, the way that all of the melt off, all the breakup and all of the debris that comes down and is kind of flattened out right there, there's a very good place to go and walk around and do things, as opposed to just some mountains going straight into the ground or into the sea. So it's an ideal place for humans and it's an ideal habitat for wildlife. And you look at that and you go, okay, what is the most likely thing that happened here as opposed to Bigfoot? Why don't we jump straight to Bigfoot? It's like, what the hell? What happened? Okay, let's say there's 6 people that were murdered at Portlock and their bodies were dumped over there and then, they were chopped up and everything. Wouldn't we go serial killer first?
Well, I mean, I would. I don't immediately, but I've felt that Bigfoot was framed for this for a long time. And I think that we've proven that tonight.
Have we?
That Bigfoot did not kill anybody in that area. Maybe he got a little mad. He was cold.
He was mad.
He couldn't open cans.
I know.
He was all out of batteries. I don't understand why people didn't just, okay, it wasn't a bear. Everyone says, hey, it wasn't a bear. But there's all these trails with apparently a lot of bear scat.
A lot of bear. So here's what I had planned on doing last summer. We had put together a group. We were going to go to Portlock. And then I contacted the Bureau up there, the Indian Bureau up there, and found out that is all tribal land now. There was a law that was passed a few years ago that all of that open land, all like BLM, what would kind of be considered just government land, was all returned to the native people, which is fantastic. I'm completely for it.
1,000%.
But they're as incompetent as running stuff as we are. And so you can't get out there unless you pay somebody, unless you have a hookup, unless this and that. And they had a TV show that went out there and did some stuff. I don't think they liked them going out and shooting the TV show on their land and that sort of stuff. So I can't remember what his title is, but I talked to him. He's like, yeah, you might want to wait a couple of years, then try to think about doing it again, because I want to go up there and do a survey of Portlock and map out everything, where all the buildings were, where the streets were, where all that stuff was. I want to do a survey for the Chromite mine and for Red Mountain as far as the heavy metal runoff, and collect samples on all that stuff. When they were pulling all of the mining equipment out of the Chromite mine at the water's edge, the barge overturned and all of that stuff went in the water and they just left it. So I want to scuba dive that and map that debris field and see what kind of environmental impact happen, because I think by doing that, it serves two purposes. I can do the paranormal investigative part of it, but I can also provide a service to the Bureau to possibly file for some sort of federal assistance as far as cleanup goes, because I firmly believe that there's some heavy metal issues there that probably should be looked at.
Well, and I think we just kind of answered, like you take all those factors in to Tressa's question about like why jump immediately to Bigfoot. You have a history of towns that have been either decimated or wiped out or abandoned, because this wasn't the first town that was kind of in that area. And then you have the environmental issue with the heavy metals sort of leaching into the environment. You have the legends and the myths that are already there, and you have inexperienced people who perhaps have never seen a bear, who have perhaps never seen any sort of like large predator whatsoever. So you kind of build on that.
Yeah. And for the people that are like, this freaking guy, I'm not saying it wasn't Bigfoot. I'm saying that I think that we need to eliminate the naturally occurring things, normally occurring things, before we go paranormal with it.
Listen, I want everything to be paranormal and crazy and weird, but I'm also not going to be like a blanket statement. It was paranormal, especially if he's going to be a murderer. You guys chill out.
Yeah,
well, and there's room for both. There's so much space and so many things that are unexplored and unseen by human eyes, and certainly by modern eyes, that there's still great swaths of land that are not explored, and we're finding new things every single day, and there's a lot of paranormal out there, and there's also a lot of rational explanation.
There's a lot of serial killing stuff going on in Alaska because it's really easy to get away with. One of my mentors.
Are you giving tips right now?
I think so.
Go up there. They'll never figure it out. One of my mentors, a guy named Jeff Hall, he was a state trooper up there for a long time. He is an amazing guy. He's the only United States law enforcement officer that has shot and killed a suspect while flying in a helicopter.
What? Is he Magnum PI?
I know. I would have that on my business cards.
Jeff Hall is the man. You can look him up at forceoptions.net or hojutsu.net. And him and his partner was killed in this gun exchange. His partner is buried like 20 miles from me here. So they were looking for, I think his name was Sitka. The guy's last name was Sitka. He was a spree killer, serial killer. So he'd just walk up to somebody's car, shoot them, kill them, yank them out, get in the car, drive, go steal another car, steal a boat, steal a plane, do whatever he's doing. He's killing everybody all along. So Jeff and his partner started tracking this guy.
Let's keep in mind, this is not a true crime podcast, and I hate it. So
I don't like any of where this is going.
Well, no, I'm just saying that there is that possibility in Portlock that this is a serial killer situation.
Well, and let's not rule out the possibility of the otter people. I mean,
the worst.
So, we have a lot of those. We have a lot of the bear and otter people here in Austin.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Do you mean furries? A little bit both.
Just want to say that this is not a furries podcast.
No.
Thank you. I meant to say that at the beginning, but I'm glad you said it eventually.
Yeah.
You guys, our time is up. You guys have any last thoughts on this or anything? Nope. Okay.
Apparently I'm pretty much wrong.
No, I didn't say that. Did I say that?
Fight.
I probably said that.
Fight. I like the looking for the reasonable explanation, because everything past that is all up to us. Yeah, up to us, and whatever you want to believe.
First, knock that out, and then whatever is not there, whatever is missing, is going to be the paranormal part. Also,
thank you for telling me about Alaska, because that is a place that I do not plan on going.
Yeah, it sounds terrible.
I tend not to go north.
It's the best ever.
I'm sure it's beautiful. I like to read about it. I like to read about the cold mountains, but I don't want to be there. I want to go to southern areas where it's warm.
You're not
good.
there now.
Those are good. Well, I want to thank y'all for having me on. I appreciate it. That's it's a big honor for me for you guys to bring me on so I could just like destroy your show straight off.
That was my whole plan.
It's such an honor to have you destroy our show. Before we even started, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
Everybody else, go rate and subscribe or whatever you do with the things with the stuff. You're welcome, America. And
Good
other
job,
places.
Tressa.
Thank you.
Good job.
God. So until next time, we'll see you. We have been at the Monsters Lounge. Bye. Wow.